I showed my grandmother a modern grocery store's fruit section. She laughed and said, "That's it? We had 15 times this variety." Then she named fruits that made me realize we're the ones living in scarcity. All right, let's start with something that'll blow your mind. The pawpaw is the largest edible fruit native to North America. And yet, most Americans have never even heard of it. How does that happen? Here's the thing. This fruit tastes like someone blended a banana, a mango, and vanilla custard together. Tropical flavor, growing wild from Michigan all the way down to Florida. George Washington? His favorite dessert was chilled pawpaw. Lewis and Clark's expedition literally survived on these things when their food ran out, so we're not talking about some obscure weedberry here. But here's why you've never seen one at the grocery store. Pawpaws spoil within 2 to 3 days of ripening. 2 to 3 days. Supermarkets won't touch anything that temperamental. Oh, and they pack more protein than bananas, apples, or grapes. A fruit with protein. Wild. There's actually a pawpaw festival in Ohio now. 10,000 people show up every year, but pawpaw isn't the only fruit that vanished from our tables. Quince looks like a pear that gave up halfway through. Lumpy, yellow, kind of fuzzy. And if you bite into one raw, mistake. Huge mistake. Your mouth will feel like you licked a chalkboard. That bitter, that astringent. But here's where it gets interesting. Cook that same fruit, and something magical happens. The flesh turns pink. The flavor becomes this incredible honey rose sweetness. Your great-grandmother knew this trick. See, before you could buy pectin at the store, quince was essential. It contains so much natural pectin that it thickens other fruits when you're making jam. Every serious preserve maker had a quince tree. Non-negotiable. And get this. The word marmalade comes from marmelo. That's Portuguese for quince. Not orange. Quince was the original marmalade fruit. Ancient Greeks even considered it sacred to Aphrodite. Brides ate quince before their wedding night. For sweet breath, apparently. But quince at least stayed edible after picking. The next fruit? You literally had to let it rot first. Okay, bledding. That's the technical term for letting a fruit rot on purpose. Sounds gross. It is kind of gross. But meddlers don't give you a choice. Pick one fresh off the tree and bite in. You'll spit it out faster than bad coffee. Hard as a rock, tannic as tree bark. Completely inedible. But leave it in a cool place for a few weeks until the flesh turns brown and mushy. Now you've got something special. The texture becomes like spiced apple butter. The flavor hits you with wine, dates, and warm cinnamon. Shakespeare made jokes about meddlers, Chaucer too, usually crude ones about decay and, well, certain body parts. Those old writers had dirty minds. Here's the practical reason people bothered with this weird fruit. Meddlers ripen after the first frost. When everything else is dead and gone, meddlers are just getting started. Some colonial meddler trees are still producing fruit 300 years later, but at least meddlers stayed legal. The next fruit got banned by the federal government. Gooseberries were everywhere. Pies, fools, jams. Your great-great-grandmother probably made gooseberry fool without even thinking twice. Just crushed berries folded into whipped cream. Simple. Delicious. Then, the federal government stepped in. In 1911, growing gooseberries became illegal. Not just discouraged, actually banned. The reason? A fungus called white pine blister rust. Gooseberries hosted it. White pines caught it and died. And America needed those pines for lumber. So the feds said no more gooseberry bushes. Period. I'll be honest. I thought these health rings were a scam. I bought one half expecting to send it back. But 3 months later, it hasn't left my finger. And it does way more than I expected. Sleep, activity, heart rate, recovery, and stress, all from one little ring. The thing that helped me most? I realized my afternoon coffee was quietly wrecking my sleep. One small change, cutting it off after lunch, and within a week, I was sleeping like a rock. Now here's why I'm telling you this. Right now, the ring's 63% off. Just $60 if you grab it through the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. There's a 90-day money-back guarantee if it's not for you, but I'm keeping mine. That ban lasted 55 years. 55. An entire generation grew up without ever seeing a gooseberry. Their parents forgot, Their grandparents gave up the bushes. The fruit just vanished from American memory. Here's what people missed. These tart little green bombs pack twice the vitamin C of oranges. Ounce for ounce. British gardeners used to hold competitions for the biggest berry. Some grew to the size of small eggs. The ban lifted in 1966. New disease-resistant varieties exist now, but the damage was done. Gooseberries never bounced back. Meanwhile, another fruit spread across America for completely unexpected reasons. Silkworms almost made America rich. Almost. In the 1800s, entrepreneurs planted mulberry trees everywhere, millions of them. The plan? Build a silk empire to rival China. It failed spectacularly. The silkworms died. The investors went broke. But the trees? Those stubborn things thrived. By the 1950s, mulberry trees shaded nearly every neighborhood. Kids knew exactly which trees had the best fruit. You'd climb up, stuff yourself silly, and come home looking like you'd committed a grape murder. Purple hands, purple mouth, purple shirt your mom would never forgive you for. Here's what nobody told you back then. Mulberries contain resveratrol, same stuff that makes red wine supposedly good for your heart. Cities hate these trees now. The berries stain sidewalks, driveways, cars. Anything underneath becomes a purple disaster zone. One mature tree produces over 100 pounds of fruit per season. Free food, everywhere. But too fragile to ship commercially. Speaking of forgotten timing, another fruit got its strange name from death itself. Service berries got their grim name from death. When spring finally thawed the frozen ground enough to dig graves, these trees bloomed white. Families could finally hold burial services for loved ones who died during winter. Cheerful, right? Native Americans had a different relationship with this fruit. They pounded service berries into buffalo meat to make pemmican. That stuff lasted years without refrigeration. Basically the original energy bar, except it actually tasted good. The flavor surprises people. It's like a blueberry married an almond, and they had a baby with a slight nuttiness from the tiny seeds. Here's the funny part. Serviceberry trees are everywhere now. Shopping malls plant them. Office parks love them. Suburban HOAs approve them as decorative landscaping. Nobody eats the berries. People walk right past free food every June without a clue. The trees contain more calcium than most fruits. Your bones would thank you. But patience? That's nothing compared to our next fruit, which literally punishes anyone who rushes. Bite into an unripe American persimmon, and your mouth turns inside out. I'm not exaggerating. The tannins are so powerful they literally pull moisture from your cheeks and tongue. Your whole face puckers like you've been turned into a cartoon character. These same tannins? People use them to tan leather and treat wounds. That's what you just put in your mouth. But wait until frost hits. That rock-hard orange fruit transforms into something like date pudding, mixed with cinnamon and brown sugar. Completely different experience. Civil War soldiers discovered this the hard way. When coffee ran out, they roasted persimmon seeds as a substitute. Desperate times, creative solutions. Wild persimmon trees grow everywhere across the eastern states. The fruit just drops and rots while people step over it. Meanwhile, those bland Asian persimmons in grocery stores? Distant cousins with none of the personality. Speaking of personality, our next fruit comes with a warning label that might surprise you. Every rural grandmother had a bottle of elderberry syrup tucked somewhere in her kitchen. Cold coming on? Spoonful of elderberry. Sniffles won't quit. More elderberry. It was basically the original cough medicine. But here's what Grandma probably didn't mention. Raw elderberries will make you seriously sick. The berries, leaves, and stems contain cyanide compounds. You have to cook them first. Grandma knew this instinctively. She'd been doing it her whole life. During the 1918 flu pandemic, when doctors had almost nothing to offer, elderberry preparations flew off shelves. People were desperate for anything that might help. And you know what? Modern research actually backs Grandma up. Studies show elderberry extract can shorten cold duration by a couple days. Science catching up to kitchen wisdom, nearly a century later. The flowers aren't poisonous, though. Those get turned into elderflower cordial. Light, sweet, perfect for summer. My aunt called it Fancy lemonade for people who think they're British. Now, speaking of berries that absolutely refuse to cooperate with modern farming, huckleberries have driven farmers absolutely crazy for decades. Every agricultural scientist who's tried to domesticate them has basically failed. The berries just won't cooperate. They need specific forest conditions, certain soil fungi, exact elevation ranges. Miss any ingredient and they refuse to produce, which explains why you've never seen huckleberries at the grocery store. The flavor, though, worth the trouble. Take a blueberry, crank up the intensity, add some wild tartness and a floral punch. That's huckleberry. Here's something most people don't consider. Bears love these berries so much that hiking trails actually close during peak season. Rangers don't want hikers competing with grizzlies over the same snack. In the Pacific Northwest, huckleberry picking was a family summer tradition. Kids, grandparents, everybody loading into the car at dawn. Driving up logging roads to secret spots nobody talked about. A gallon of wild huckleberries runs $30 to $50 today. Every berry hand-picked from remote mountainsides. Now, speaking of fruits from difficult terrain, mayhaws grow in swamps, actual flooded swamps where snakes swim and alligators lurk. Harvesting them? You shake the tree while sitting in a boat. The berries drop into the water and you scoop them up before they float away. Sounds ridiculous, but Southerners have done this for generations. The fruit itself is tiny, sour, and packed with seeds. Nobody eats them fresh. That would be punishment, not food. But turn them into jelly? Magic happens. Mayhaw jelly tastes like apple and cranberry had a baby, then raised it on honey. Spread that on a warm biscuit, and you'll understand why Southern grandmothers refuse to share their trees' locations. Here's the sad part. Swamp drainage has destroyed countless mayhaw habitats. Developers don't care about jelly traditions. Louisiana and Georgia still hold festivals where old-timers teach kids the boat-shaking harvest method. Keeping the knowledge alive matters. Speaking of fruits that practically grow themselves, ground cherries look like tiny tomatoes wearing paper dresses. And honestly, that's basically what they are. During World War II, these little guys popped up in victory gardens everywhere. Why? Because you could kill them and they'd still grow. Total beginner-proof plants. The taste throws everyone off. Your brain expects tomato. Your tongue gets tropical pineapple mixed with vanilla. It's confusing in the best way. Here's the clever part. When they're ripe, they fall off the plant. No guessing games. And those papery husks? Nature's own packaging. The fruit stays fresh for weeks just sitting on your counter. Your grandmother didn't need refrigeration for these. One scraggly plant produces hundreds of fruits. Hundreds. That's a lot of weird little flavor bombs from basically zero effort. Now farmers markets sell them as husk cherries, because apparently ground sounds dirty. Marketing people, am I right? But here's a fruit that needed fancy marketing centuries ago. Damson plums are basically grape-sized. Seriously, trying to eat one fresh is an exercise in frustration because the pit takes up half the fruit. But here's the thing, nobody ate these fresh anyway. Your great-grandmother knew the secret. You cook damsons down, and suddenly you've got the most intensely flavored plum jam that's ever existed. Nothing in any grocery store comes close. It's like regular plum jam went to flavor boot camp. These little guys have been around for over 2,000 years, named after Damascus. That's some serious fruit credentials. And damson gin? Oh, that was the good stuff. British families brought that tradition straight to America. You'd steep the plums in alcohol all winter, then sip it by the fire. Basically medicinal, right? The trees are nearly indestructible too. Old farmsteads still have damson trees producing fruit 50 years after anyone stopped caring for them. Speaking of tough plants that kept our grandparents healthy through hard times, rose hips are literally just rose fruit. Every single rose bush makes them. Your grandmother knew this. You probably don't. Here's the wild part. During World War II, Britain couldn't import oranges anymore. So what did they do? Sent children out to collect rose hips from hedgerows. Why? These little red pods contain 20 times more vitamin C than oranges. 20 times. Grandma didn't need a vitamin aisle. She had a rose bush and a recipe for rose hip tea. The flavor is hard to describe. Tangy, kind of floral, like if cranberries and hibiscus had a baby. But here's the catch. You absolutely cannot just pop these in your mouth. The seeds inside have tiny hairs that'll wreck your digestive system. Seriously, you have to process them first. Modern rose breeders don't care about fruit anymore, they just want prettier flowers. So newer rose varieties produce terrible hips. Meanwhile, another fruit sits in yards everywhere, completely ignored. Crab apples. They're everywhere. Literally millions of these trees in American yards right now, and nobody eats them. This is insane to me. Your grandparents looked at that tree and saw free jelly for the whole year. You look at it and see annoying little fruits that mess up your lawn. Here's what makes crab apples special. They're packed with so much natural pectin that the jelly practically sets itself. Before you could buy pectin in stores, Grandma would add crabapple juice to her other preserves just to make them thicken up. It was the secret ingredient. And the jelly? Crystal clear, like stained glass you can spread on toast. Now, most crab apples are sour. I get it, but some varieties are actually sweet enough to eat right off the tree. Dolgo, Centennial, Chestnut. These taste legitimately good. One tree produces so much fruit that a single harvest weekend could fill your pantry for 12 months. But the rarest forgotten fruit? It only grows in one specific place. Beach plums. They only grow in one narrow strip of sandy coastline from Maine down to Virginia. That's it. Nowhere else on Earth. And the taste? Like someone took a regular plum and concentrated it 10 times over. There's this wine-like complexity that makes store-bought plums taste like water by comparison. Here's the thing. Families kept their picking spots secret for generations. I'm talking real secrecy. Grandpa would drive in circles to confuse the kids before revealing the hidden thicket. But coastal development bulldozed most of these wild patches. Beach houses now sit where plum bushes grew for centuries. The plants actually prevent erosion with their deep roots, so destroying them was doubly stupid. A few small farms have started cultivating beach plums now. They charge premium prices for what used to be free. 15 fruits, all delicious. Most growing within walking distance of your house right now. Your grandparents knew something we forgot. Free food is everywhere, we just stopped looking.